What up, everybody? I'm actually going to start with reading an extract from my book because it is so important for you guys to know how important health became in my life and how I didn't put it first for so long. So I'm going to read a little extract just to give you guys an introduction into my health, and then let's get down to business. All right. So this is one of my chapters. Chapter 5 is called Life is Not a Fairy Tale, Save Yourself. For years, I dealt with horrific, unimaginable, couldn't wish it on my worst enemy kind of stomach issues. I can honestly, hand on my heart, say that my health issues were one of the best things that ever happened to me. Yep, you heard that right. I'm supercalifragilisticexpialidociously grateful for my years of painful stomach problems. It showed me that money and success truly means nothing when you can barely get up, and that there is zero sense of pride, accomplishment, or satisfaction when you ignore your body, turn a blind eye to the warning signs, and try to pretend that everything is fine when it's so not fine. So I wanted to start with that. And I'm going to share with you guys a story of exactly what happened with my health and how I came to that conclusion. Because I think before we even start to talk about how we develop healthy habits, how we really show up for ourselves, I think to me, it is imperative to so connect with your why. Because we all know habits are not going to be easy to form. Letting go of old habits are not going to be easy to do. And so you need to hold strong to this why, so that every time you find that you're struggling, that you're having an issue where you can't stick to a habit, maybe, you need to have an orientation and that North Star. And so for me, it really came to, I thought all that mattered was success. And so in the effort of building Quest, I gave up my sleep. I thought that for every hour that I worked, I could cash in for a validation point because I didn't feel great about myself. So I was seeking validation from the external world. And the external world was giving me a pat on the back for all the hard work that I was doing and all the hours I was putting in. And so what I was doing was I was ignoring every single signal that came my way. And that's where I want to start, guys, is for us to start to identify the signals we've been trained, whether it's our fault, the external sources, whatever. What are the signals that right now we are being trained to ignore? For me, I kept getting big gut issues and I just kept ignoring it. Oh, it's fine. I ate something weird. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just my stomach. And over time, it just got worse and worse. And I didn't want to feel weak, because I associated myself with not being healthy as weakness. And I didn't want to look from the outside to be weak. So all the signals that my gut was telling me, I was literally shooting down like a game of duck hunt. Anyone play duck hunt? That was me. And so because of that, flash forward, we built Quest into $1 billion company. And the very day, guys, I am not joking. It is so like if you believe in spirituality, it's like someone was trying to tell me something on that day. I worked so hard for 10 years, ignored my body, ignored all the signs. And then what ended up happening was the day we were actually celebrating selling Quest, we have the dream house. Like you can't paint more what we thought was a perfect picture of the celebration of the day that I had been working so hard for 10 years. And on that day, guys, I took a swig of champagne and my gut, like that, felt like it erupted. And from that day forward, I couldn't eat like a normal person. For a year, I was 20 pounds lighter than I was now. My hair was falling out. My nails were brittle. I was so sick. At the height of my success, I was the worst health I ever could possibly imagine. I couldn't wear a bra, guys, for more than like 4 months because my stomach was so protruded out that I couldn't stand up for longer than 2 minutes at a time, 5 minutes at a time. Now, I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. So acknowledging how you're feeling with these signals and why we ignore them. For me, I was ignoring it because I felt shame around the fact that I wasn't feeling great. I was feeling shame around the fact that here I was, me and my husband just built $1 billion company on nutrition. And yet I can't eat my own product because I am so sick. I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. And so I hid behind it. And so in hiding behind it, I looked externally That's why this chapter is called Save Yourself. I was looking for someone else to save me. So in this process, where I had now gotten to the point of no return, I had looked outside of myself for other people to fix me. I thought, okay, well, now that we have the finances, I can just hire the best doctor. They're going to fix me. I can just take this pill. I'm just going to follow this doctor's advice, and I'm going to be okay. And year after year, I still wasn't improving. Now, it got to the point where, because I'm so goal-oriented, the way that I was handling it wasn't improving my health. And so I had to take a hard look, and I had to step back and say, Lisa, what if you actually did this to yourself? Because I was grasping at straws at this point, guys, to the point my husband thought I was like slowly dying. I was so malnutrition. And so in the desperation to seek savior, to seek getting better, I had to start pivoting the way that I thought. The definition of insanity is, doing the same thing and expecting a different result. And so for 2 years, I was looking for someone else to save me. I was looking for the doctor. And what I realized was I was giving my power away. And in that realization, multiple things happened. Number one, the most beautiful thing was that where I had gotten to, my health issues, the most beautiful thing was realizing it was all my fault. Now, look, fault, the word may trigger some of you. That is not my intention. Use a word that actually you can connect with. It is my ownership. It is my responsibility. But whatever word that you can tie to that empowers you to move and shift from giving your power away to taking your power back. For me, it was fault. And so what I realized was it wasn't the doctor's fault, because I kept saying it was the doctor's fault. They kept giving me antibiotics, right? All my friends kept saying it was the doctor's fault. You had too many antibiotics. They should have told you. But for 2 years, that narrative didn't serve me. And so I started to ask myself, what if I changed the narrative? What if this was on me? What would that look like? And in that moment, I said, oh, the doctors didn't force antibiotics down my throat. The doctors didn't force me to have a sensitive or an unhealthy relationship with food. That was my doing. Growing up, I saw people saying, oh, you don't want to get fat. So I was the one that stopped eating carbs. I was the one that stopped eating fat. Once I could take ownership over that, once I could start taking ownership over the fact that the doctors said to me, I probably shouldn't give you this many antibiotics. Never once did I ask why. Never once did I research what does antibiotics do for you. So in hindsight, what had happened to my gut was I wasn't replenishing it with the foods I was eating. I was then getting antibiotics because I was getting sick over and over again. The antibiotics were killing my gut bacteria. And so this became a death spiral where I wasn't replenishing it. I was getting more antibiotics. I wasn't replenishing it. You do that for 10 to 15 years. That's exactly what happened. My gut erupted. And so in that moment of taking ownership, not making myself feel bad, but saying, wow, if I actually did this to myself, this actually means I can stop waiting to be saved. It actually means if I have the power to do it, I also have the power to undo it. And so that became the very initial catalyst to my health journey and to me setting habits that stuck and letting go of habits that didn't serve me. But it was important, guys, for me to start with this story, to start with the ownership piece. This isn't about blame. This isn't about feeling badly about yourself, but it absolutely is taking you from feeling like you may be a victim, which is exactly how I felt. I felt like a victim. I felt like I was a victim of my own health. I can't believe this has happened to me. Why has this happened to me? I don't know what I've done wrong, right? That's the victim side of me versus your own hero. I can get better. I can fix myself. I can save myself. I don't know why, and I don't know how, but the belief, the idea of how you're going to step into this is absolutely fundamental and imperative when you start to talk about developing habits. Because now, if you're unable initially to develop a habit, if if your habit, like, oh my God, I was so good and then I fell off. The important part is to keep coming back to, this is on me. I have the responsibility to maintain this habit. I have the responsibility to let this old habit go. The mindset, the idea. And I beg of you guys, if you can see it as empowering, I saw it as the most empowering thing for me to not now listen to the doctors, to actually take it on myself. Guys, I'm going to talk about discipline and focus. So when Brendan reached out to me and asked me to come on here, I got that like imposter syndrome part, like, oh my God, like Brendan, he's so amazing. Who am I? Who am I to deserve to go on, his platform and speak? Now, the reason why I want to start there is my negative voice is continuous. It doesn't stop. I haven't been able to quieten it. So here's what I've done. When I have the negative voice, I've stopped trying to battle it. I've stopped trying to push it off. I've stopped trying to ignore it because I haven't been able to. So now what I do is I've shifted my perspective of how I see that negative voice. And I go, if I have to see it as a friend, well, what would I say to it? So the perfect example of yesterday, Brendan reaches out, negative voice is like, who the hell do you think you are? And so then it comes in, I'm like, okay, friend, what are you trying to tell me? And in that moment where I just opened it up, no ego, no emotion, no like, I'm not good enough, just leaving it space. What are you trying to tell me? Trying to tell me that Brendan's freaking A level. And Lisa, you haven't done enough. You haven't practiced enough. You haven't put in the hours like Brendan has to show up and be as good as him. Now that's the truth. So now that I've addressed the truth, I don't feel badly about it. And I say, okay, if I want to be the best in the world, I've got to put in the hours. So that's number one. That's why I'm here. This is part of me putting in the hours. So when I said, okay, fear, what are you telling me? It's you're not good enough. I go, great. How do I get good? I get good by going on. I get good by talking. I get good by getting them the feedback and saying, what did I do well? What did I do wrong? That is how I have worked to have my negative voice help me instead of stop me from my goals. So that's one thing. To me, it's what are the tools I'm going to use in order to show up every day and be the hero of my own life. That's the language I like to use. I like to use the word hero. It makes me feel a certain way. So that is it. It's having a toolbox of things you can get whenever you're in need of something. But for me, it's not even the acts. Tell me to go to bed at 9. Okay, I'll go to bed at 9. Tell me to do this. All right, I can do that. Until the negative voice and the belief that I'm not good enough, the belief that who do you think you are, the belief that like, I actually don't know this, but I'm still going to do it anyway. All of those things, to me, guys, is what stops me. It's the emotion behind it. It's the fear of failing and people making fun of me. It's the fear of doing something wrong. Those things are real. And now I ask, how do you not stop them in your tracks to that goal? That when you are lacking discipline, when you lack it, because you will, no matter how much me, Brendan, everyone's trying to give you tips and tactics and tricks, there will be moments that you lack it. And in that moment, you have to believe in yourself to get back up. You have to believe that. So now let's talk about how we actually believe those things. And this is how I function. This is honestly, guys, the no BS of how I get up every day. So the very first thing, and if you are fans of my husband, you have heard this time and time again, but it is so fundamental to how we function in life as individuals, in our business, that it is absolutely the first thing you need to ask yourself. No bullshit, what would it actually take? So when we talk about focus, when we talk about discipline, to me, it is to achieve something. It isn't just focus and discipline in random. And that's how I see confidence. People say to me, Lisa, I want the confidence. And I say, to do what? You want the discipline to do what? There's an end goal in sight. And sometimes we focus so much on the discipline element or the act of doing something that we lose sight of what that end goal is. Because then you pat yourself on your back and you go, great, I'm now disciplined, but have you reached a goal? Like, to me, that's your line of how you should assess on whether you've achieved it or not. Have you actually reached your goal? Now, here's the thing. In reaching your goal, for me, my goal is 10, 20-year plan. So I need those small wins. I need those little things that allow me to say, yes, I've achieved it. All right, so now let me just back up a second and go back to no bullshit. What would it actually take? So before you do anything, you have to ask yourself that. If it is, so what's your goal right now? I'm asking everyone to write down actually their goal. Now, your goal needs to be in less than a sentence. You can't have like a whole run on, oh, I want to do this so I can do this and then I'll end up doing this. You need to succinctly be able to say what your goal is so that you have clarity. If you don't have clarity, no one else will. So be very succinct. What is that goal? Okay, everyone's written down that goal in hopefully 4 words, maybe a little more, but so succinctly, I can tell you my goal. I used to say, I want to create impact. Well, what the hell does that mean? Impact positively or impact negatively? Okay, I want to impact positively. Okay, great. Who? Females, males, everyone? Females. Okay, what age? Like, I have gotten so detailed on exactly what my goal is. I want to impact young girls aged between 11 and 15 because that is the age of imprint. I can say it super succinctly, right? So now I know my goal. You have to get very clear on what your goal is. Write that down. Now, play the no bullshit. What would it actually take to get there? So if it's the easy one is like learn a language, right? If I said to you, do you know how to speak Mandarin? And I chose a very difficult language on purpose. Do you know how to speak Mandarin? Most people are like, oh God, no, I can't. And I'll be like, oh, okay, but you could learn. Most people will be like, oh God, no, God, that's so overwhelming. Well, now let me break it down. What's the no bullshit right now if you guys had to actually learn Mandarin? You may have to give up your job. You may have to ignore your partner. You may have to sell your house so you can finance the classes, right? This is all the no BS with no judgment right now. You're just actually laying out what it's going to take for you to get there. Because what we often do, me, myself included, I used to say that isn't possible before I've even assessed it. And I had a live the other day, and this woman was actually saying, Lisa, my father comes over every single night for dinner. I'm trying to start this business, and he keeps reminding me that I'm not at home with my child and makes me feel like a bad mother. So I said, okay, have you played the no bullshit game of what it would take to eliminate that toxicity in your life? Option number 1, don't invite your dad. And she was like, she literally just shook her head. And I'm like, hang on, you've already dismissed it. Now, I understand you don't want to, and you are deciding to keep inviting him. But the breakthrough, guys, the breakthrough is acknowledging you have that choice. So you 100% have the choice to lock your front door and not let your dad in. But now you have to say, no bullshit, am I willing to do it? And if you're not willing to do it, then that's amazing. But now you realize it's a choice and you're not being forced into it. So that's number 1. Actually write down and lay out what your no BS thing is to get to that goal. And now, without judgment, ask yourself if you're actually willing to do it. So with Tom and I, we came into impact theory. We're going to build the next Disney. No BS, what does that actually take? All right, that means working day and night, which means Monday to Friday. Me and my husband are not romantic partners. Monday to Friday, me and my husband are business partners. And that was the no BS of how we're actually going to build the next Disney. And so we were willing to do it. So I urge you guys, that is so important, fundamental, to make sure that you actually understand that and know what you have to do to get there. All right, now next thing is no BS. What is actually stopping you? So be honest. Is it your emotion? Is it I feel bad? Is it I feel like I will be a less mother, a less husband, a less whatever it is. And so if I do this, I have this fear. Okay, acknowledge the fear. Don't judge yourself. You're going to hear me repeat that, guys. And at the end, you may want to punch me in the face, but like, this is what I tell myself all the time. Do not judge yourself. Do not judge yourself on the answers that you come up with. This is just giving you a space to acknowledge it. Now say, okay, no BS, what's actually stopping me? And then you can assess, are you willing to eliminate that hurdle from your life? So if it's the example of this lady, her dad, is she willing to cut her dad out of her life? If that's what's needed, I wouldn't jump straight to that. But let's say that's the case. Are you willing to? That's the no bullshit. So you have to ask yourself that. When I think about finding your purpose, the big thing that I had to go back to was making sure that your purpose aligns with what is making you happy. And the reason why I say that is because, in case you don't know my story, I'll just give a quick background. I spent 8 years at home supporting my husband because I thought that that was what my purpose should be. And acknowledging that what you may be doing now and you may be saying is your purpose, does it actually align with what makes you happy on a day-to-day? Like, that's almost like the very first thing that we need to address. Because for me, I told myself every day I was living a purpose. My purpose was I was supporting my husband, who was going out to make enough money so we could make movies together. Now, when I first started, it was like, yes, I have a purpose. We have a goal. I know my direction. Me and my husband are in it together. We're willing to do what it takes. And a year passed. And he came back and he's like, babe, we just need another year and a half. I said, cool, I can do that. Another year passed. What ended up happening was 8 years of my life went by because I told myself I had a purpose and I never questioned it. So that's going to be the very first thing that we need to talk about and that you guys need to assess. Because for me, I now, in looking back, I call it the purgatory of the mundane. And the reason why I call it like that is because so many people that I've had on my show, incredible humans, talk about hitting rock bottom. And when they hit rock bottom, they say there's nowhere else to go. But what about so many of us that don't hit rock bottom, that just feel stuck? I was there for 8 years. And for me, my life was it was mundane. And I felt like I was stuck there because I didn't think I had the audacity to ask for more. I kept telling myself, but I have a husband that loves me and I have a husband that's out working every day. And so I'm living my purpose to support him. But what I never asked myself was, does this make me happy on a day-to-day? And each day that I just dismissed my own happiness, I was now living a lie. And so I had to address that I was stuck, and I had to address why I was stuck. So first step is acknowledging where you are right now. And then without judgment, saying, how did I get here in the first place? Because for me to get out of it, I had to see and figure out how I got myself into it. So first of all, it was the blinders. I told myself I had a purpose, but it wasn't aligned with my heart. So I had to acknowledge that with no judgment. I then had to say, what does a day-to-day look like? What is that excitement? And it wasn't putting clothes out for my husband. It wasn't making sure that all our socks matches. And like, while it's kind of funny to look back and say that, it's actually true. The purpose was, does my husband need food? Does he need clothes? And is there a roof over our head? So because my life, I had a roof over my head. I didn't have to work. I had a husband that loved me more than life itself. So how did I get stuck? I didn't think that I could speak up and say, yes, while I'm grateful, I want more. I honestly felt like, because I was blessed to have this wonderful relationship and I didn't have to want a roof over my head, that I couldn't ask for happiness. I couldn't ask because I thought, oh my God, that means that I'm ungrateful. And I had to acknowledge that just because I was ecstatic and overjoyed with this part of my life, it doesn't mean you can't be utterly miserable and stuck in other parts of your life. And I just had to acknowledge that that's where I ended up being, and I can ask for more. So that's going to be very key, guys, for you guys to differentiate between what purpose are you living, what life are you living, and does it actually align with your day-to-day that is going to make you happy. Now, going back into reassessing how I ended up there, it also was, I had to assess my belief system. Now, a lot of us in this, world talk about how we think, what we believe, but where did it come from? And so for me, in order to break the belief system that I had to support my husband, that I had to put dinner on the table every day, I had to see where that came from. And so without judgment, I'm going to keep saying that, guys. You're going to hear me say that a lot, because in assessing your life, in assessing where you are and when you want to go, you have to remove the judgment, the shame, or the embarrassment that at least I put on myself. So I'm going to keep repeating that throughout this entire time. So where did my belief come from that I ended up thinking that my purpose was to stay at home and support my husband? It was growing up. I come from a very traditional Greek Orthodox family. So over the years, I kept hearing from my grandmother, if I fell on the, like literally, if I scraped my knee on the floor and fell on my face, you know, as a kid when you're playing, my grandmother would run over to me. She'd be, oh, you'll be okay by the time you get married. So it's like, now imagine every time I'm upset, every time I'm hurt, my grandmother, who I admire and respect, is continuously telling me, don't worry, you'll be fine by the time you get married. What is that subliminal message of telling a young girl? It's telling me that all I need to do is get to marriage and my life is going to be fine. That is actually my end goal. All right. So I noticed that. Cool. I've been told this time and time again. Do I actually believe it? No. And that doesn't mean I'm judging my grandmother. But now I go, I have this belief. Do I actually believe it? Does it actually resonate? Again, no judgment, yes or no. If the answer is yes, amazing. If the answer is no, now I go, how do I overcome this? So going back to what were all the things that were dripping on me over the years, and I want you guys to assess as I'm telling you my story, what are the things that have been dripping over you that has led you to believe something that is now in essence controlling your life? So it was my grandmother telling me time and time again. And there was one moment burnt into my skull. And it was, I was sitting with my dad. I wanted to study filmmaking. That was my heart. That was my dream. Whatever that dream is, guys, you know, right? When you're young, you say, I'm going to do this. And then I had an argument with my dad. He didn't want me to study. He didn't want me to study film. Eventually, he turns around to me. He's like, oh, it doesn't matter. In a way, you're going to be a stay-at-home wife. Those are the actual words that came out of my dad's mouth. Now, my dad, who comes from a tiny village in Cyprus, grew up in a world where women didn't get an education. So it wasn't about me, Lisa, not being able to, or he's just like, well, you're no good. It was just, for him, that was a belief system that he grew up to see. So he passed that down to his children. So even though I had big dreams, I went into it and slipped into purgatory of the mundane, because after the first year, when my husband was like, we just need another year and a half to make enough money, part of my belief system was like, well, you're supporting your husband and this is really what you're supposed to be doing. So go back now, figure out why you think what you think, and does it align with who you are now? Because remember, guys, we're all changing, we're all growing. Just think about who we were even before COVID. So many of us have changed and had new perspectives on lives. That's just in the last 2 years. So now imagine a deep-rooted belief that you have that you actually can't break because you don't even realize it's a choice. So I realized after assessing, it's all a choice. I believe this because of how I was brought up, but I can change that belief. So for me, in order to break the purgatory of the mundane, my crazy husband came home one day and wanted to start a new company. This new company was called Quest Nutrition. And he said, babe, I just need you to help out. Just need you to box a couple of bars from the living room floor. You're just helping out. Now, as the good Greek wife, I basically went back to, of course, I'm stuck. So anything that came my way, I was just like, yeah, whatever happens, whatever you say, that makes sense. Yeah. Now, what we didn't anticipate is that Quest would grow at 57,000%. And we became the second fastest growing company in North America and went from $0 to $1 billion within 5 years. Now, for someone who is insecure, has a very negative mindset, believes that I had waited every day for 8 years for my husband to come home to make me feel a certain way. He's going to come home, make me feel happy. He's going to come home, hey, babe, how was your day? For 8 years, I waited for somebody else to bring me excitement, joy, confidence. But then I was thrust into a situation that I almost didn't have control over. So again, I went in saying, yes, babe, I got you. I've got your back. I'm the good Greek wife. I'm going to support you. But because we grew so quickly, guys, I didn't have the luxury of allowing my negative mindset to say, who do you think you are? So when I went into growing Quest, I had developed our shipping department. And we grew so quickly, I went from actually shipping bars from my living room floor to within 2 years, I had 40 employees working underneath me. Now, how the hell did I do that when I had zero confidence, zero understanding of business, zero belief in myself? So first of all, my house was on the line. So I had an incentive. You have to do this because your house, otherwise you lose your house. So having a powerful incentive like that really did make a change in me. Every time I felt insecure, every time I wanted to hold back, every time I didn't believe in myself, I just said, okay, are you going to allow this negativity, this non-belief in yourself that you're not good enough? Are you going to let it get in your way from learning something so you can save your house? No judgment, but are you? Yes or no? It's binary. And I said no. So every time something came up, I had to reassess my emotions and move forward.
This can be your day for personal growth. This can be that day you committed to and you remember and you go, that was the day I got myself a community. I got better coaches. I committed to making my life the absolute best that I could. This is that day. Make today your growth day. Click the button on this page and sign up right now.